Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this really exciting first look webinar. We are beyond thrilled to be sharing with you new opportunities in Argentina through ECI development. With me tonight, I have ECI's CEO, Mike Cobb, who will be taking us through the opportunities currently available at GRAN Vineyard Estates. More people who are joining us, please feel free to send over in the question section of the control panel where it is you're calling in from. And it looks like Dane knew that this question was coming because before we even started the webinar, he typed in Oklahoma City. It looks like we also have someone calling in from Seattle, New York, Toronto. Ryan is in Portland, Oregon. Dirk is in Seattle as well. Eric in Montreal, Canada. Holly's in Nicaragua. Eric is in New York, where he informed us that it is snowy and cold. Mary Ellen is in Guayaquil. We have another Toronto, Mexico City, a couple folks calling in from Belize, San Diego, Oil City, St. Augustine, Charlotte, Beaufort, Winchester, Nantucket, San Mateo, California. Not too surprised about San Mateo since you are there in the heart of wine country as well. We have someone else calling in from Iowa. That's Dean. Kirk calling in from Atlanta. Steve calling in from Phoenix. And it looks like we have a really great array of folks here. And I thank you all for taking the time to spend with us as we uncover new opportunities in Argentina. So the journey of Argentina and ECI's involvement there actually begins a little bit before you may expect. And Mike, why don't you tell us how ECI's interest in Argentina started?
Sure. Well, Rachel, thank you for a great introduction. It's always wonderful to have you call out the places that people are dialing in from. I mean, it really is global, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, my initial friendship with Steve Roseberg started about 10 years ago. I would see him at conferences. He was working on his vineyard, and we were working on our development projects. And over the years, we became pretty good friends. And he started to invite me to come down and ride horseback with him across the Andes. And he invited me, I think, 3 times. The first 2 times I was busy. I couldn't do the dates. And then he said, next year, Mike, I want you to come do this with me. And so I blocked the dates, and that was 4 years ago. And my wife, Carol, and I rode across the Andes with Steve and his wife, Cora. And it was on horseback, 5 days, 4 nights. It was a spectacular, really adventure in the mountains. And Steve and I got to know one another. We really talked about working together in the future, and then we were able to. We've been putting this joint venture together now for about maybe seriously for about 1.5 to 2 years. We finally figured out all the details, and Rachel and I, myself, Joel Nagel, and Patrick Ebert all went to Argentina a couple weeks ago to finalize everything, and we did that and get everybody familiar with the property and the project, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight is what we are launching there. And as you can see from this cover photo, I mean, this is the vineyard. I mean, it's a mature, beautiful producing vineyard. Produces about 3.3 million kilograms of grapes annually, and it's about 1 kilogram to 1 bottle. So, Steve's vineyards are cranking out about 3.5 million bottles of wine a year, and we're just really, really excited to be able to offer homes and condos in this environment, and we're going to talk more about that. So, Rachel, am I leading the way, or are you jumping back in? I'm not sure what the format is here.
Go ahead. Yeah, you lead the way, and there are going to be a couple of poll questions for folks throughout the presentation. I'll jump in there, but otherwise, Mike, you got the reins here.
All right, very good. Well, one of the analogies that I like to really talk about is this idea of a time machine, and some of y'all who have been on webinars or seen presentations in the past know that this is something I circle back to on a pretty frequent basis. The concept of time machine is a powerful one, because I think all of us, if we were able to jump on this time machine right here in front of us and set the dial back 20 years, and we'd have one day to make investments, run around and go buy stocks or buy property or do whatever it was, one day to make investments 20 years ago, and then come right back to this moment, we'd all come back a lot wealthier. And what the region of Latin America really is this real life time machine. And we're going to talk a little bit about that to kind of wade into this idea, and then we're going to talk about where it is, why it is, how it is, so that if this is something that's exciting for you, you'll kind of know where to go. And so to just launch, imagine being able to get in the time machine and go back to Napa Valley 50 years ago. Right, this is the time that Ernest and Julio were getting started there, and the basic vineyards were being planted, and wine was just starting to become a thing in California. And if you'd gone out and bought 100 acres of property in Napa Valley, it'd be worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars today. And so by going to Argentina, to Mendoza, Argentina specifically, it's like going back to Napa Valley 50 years ago in terms of the feel, the look, the price, and most importantly, the opportunity. Some of y'all again have seen this. It's in a lot of our literature. I put the various regions or countries on this graph in the form of popularity in the United States and in Canada. And simply what I said to myself was, if you're a U.S. or Canadian person who's just gotten married, a couple, where are you likely to go on your honeymoon? Well, lots of people going to Costa Rica and Panama and Brazil. Not very many people going to Nicaragua or the Caribbean side of Costa Rica. And Belize is certainly coming up, and we do a lot of work there, and we're building a Marriott hotel in Ambergris Caye, so it's kind of transitioning into the more popular, right? But Argentina, because of its distance, and probably because of some of the economic, I call it yo-yo or cycles that they've had over the last 100 years, has made it less popular. But what that means is that the popularity is priced into the marketplace, or the lack of popularity in Argentina's case. And so what we have is a real buying opportunity, because it's not as popular as some of these other countries, but it's certainly growing in popularity, and we can take advantage of that. Why Argentina? Again, it's an incredible country. It's got a rich heritage of centuries. In fact, up until the 1880s, it was the wealthiest country in the world. It's a huge agricultural producer. It's a very safe country. Direct flights from Europe, direct flights from the United States, direct flights from Panama. And we put that on here because a lot of times people in the United States and Canada don't really think about flying through Panama as their hub. But on Copa Airlines, they fly directly daily to Mendoza, Argentina through Panama on Copa. And again, the geography, the vineyards, it truly is a spectacular location. The country is, here's some stats on the country. Tango, obviously, the beef, the wines, the seasons. That's another thing. And this idea of the other side of the equator, right, is that it's the opposite season. So for people who want to enjoy the summer weather in North America and then fly down for a home and enjoy a home in Argentina, they can do it in kind of summer all the time. Just flip flop back and forth. Again, it has a European feel, very much so. And so you'll sense that when you're there, and lots of folks speak English, so it's easy to get around if you don't speak Spanish. So anyway, some fun facts. Rachel, are you handling the trivia, or am I handling the trivia?
I sure am. So in just one moment, everybody should have a poll launched on their screen there. Which white grape is only grown in Argentina? Chardonnay, Torrentes, Pinot Gris, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce this last one. These four are all grown in Argentina, but which of the four is the only grape that is grown in Argentina? So I'll give you a quick moment there to make your best guess, and don't worry, it's okay if you don't get it correct. It's a learning experience. I know this was definitely something that our group learned when we were down there just last week. All right, we'll close the poll now. And there on your screen, Mike, why don't you switch to the next slide?
All right. Maybe. Oh, what happened? Here we go. Hang on. Technical. There we go. All right.
Perfect. And the answer is obviously B, Torrentes. And that is the only place, Argentina is the only place where this grape is grown. And we did a tremendous amount of tasting the wines, the Torrentes wines, and they truly are a really delicious and refreshing white wine. So I recommend everybody try it when they have the opportunity to get to Argentina.
All right. Yeah, I'm not trying that last name either. So
that's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful. All right. Well, so we try to talk about where people are going, and the Uco Valley is the heart of the wine growing region in Argentina. It's about an hour and a half south of the actual city of Mendoza, and it runs. And it runs right at the foothills of the Andes. You can see it kind of sits right in there in the heart of the Andes, and it's an incredible wine growing region because of the weather, the soils, and again, it's producing award-winning wines. Malbec being one of the most famous. Again, the beautiful scenery right in the foothills, the alluvial soils coming off the mountains produce just incredible vines, which produce the great grapes. On the way to the Grand Vineyard Estates, this is what you see as you head down into the Uco Valley. It is just stunning and spectacular. Again, this idea of a time machine. If here's a home in the Napa Valley, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I mean, it's nothing fancy. It's an older home built in 1932, but it's on 1.1 acres. And it's almost $2 million, 1,500 square foot home. Same thing in Argentina, about a quarter of the price. There's a beautiful home, the model home that we built. It's 2-bedroom, 2.5-bath, about a half an acre of property for $299, plus the closing costs and the taxes. So again, $2 million or $299. Big difference in price, and if for folks looking for the experience, for the lifestyle, to live on a vineyard with the same look, feel, weather, everything as Napa Valley for a lot less than a quarter of the price, it's here. We can do it. Again, just some beautiful scenery and located very close to many things that you might want to do. So the closest place to get your groceries is the Vista Flores, a town of about 2,500 people, some great restaurants. We ate there, about 20 minutes away. Tunuyán is about 30 minutes away, a little bit bigger city of about 50 to 70,000 folks. And again, another little cool town, a very popular wine growing town with some wineries there too, La Consulta. Again, about 30 minutes away. So you're very close to other towns, to shopping, to banking, to gas stations. There's a golf course, which is not on here, but it's about 20 minutes away. Everything very close proximity to the Grand Vineyard Estates. And when you're there, I mean, you can sit around and enjoy the wine, of course, but horseback riding, hiking, we did the horseback riding, and you can do the hiking in the Andes. The fly fishing is spectacular. And then the golf is, again, about 20 minutes away. So wonderful outdoor activities right around the Grand Vineyard Estates as well. The area is getting famous. Again, this idea of time machine. The Vines is a world-class winery and restaurant and hospitality location, and it's 3 minutes from the Vineyard Estates. So if you own a home at Grand Vineyard Estates, you can go over to the Vines and enjoy a wonderful meal, the fine wines, and drive home. Properties there start at about $1.2, $1.3 million, very high end. And so the same experience, enjoy the Vines, but don't have to pay for it. The Casa de Uco winery is, again, just a spectacular winery, about 10 minutes up the hill from us, and about 10 minutes from us is Bono's winery, and again, the celebrities, the movie stars, they're recognizing this. They're moving in, and we all know what that does to property prices and the value of our investments. So again, we're paying attention to this, and I hope you are too. All right, Rachel, coming back to you for another quiz.
All righty, everybody start thinking about this as we get the poll up. And hopefully it's not too tricky of a question, but what is the name of the Argentine grill used for cooking asado? And I'll give you a little hint. Asado is grilled beef. So hopefully that helps. You can either choose Melback, Gaucho, Grill, or Parrilla. And I'll give you about 2 seconds here. 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We'll close that poll, and it looks like 67% of the group got this correct. And Mike, yes, there it is, Parrilla. And I know in Argentina you pronounce the double L's like a J, so Parrilla is how you'd pronounce it. But Gaucho, just for those of you who did do Gaucho, Gaucho is a cowboy. So close, but no cigar on that one.
And speaking of cigars, when we rode, Rachel was with us, we rode horses one morning to go up to the top of what felt like a mountain when we were riding up it. And when we got to the top, we watched the sunrise, we drank coffee and drank mate, and our Gaucho guide pops out this box of Cuban cigars and a bottle of whiskey. So it was quite a sunrise experience.
Remember, that was sunrise. That was sunrise. It was early.
That's right. And if you join us, and we're going to have a wonderful trip in April. And if you join us, I think we'll be hooking back up with Nino and his gauchos to get us back up for another sunrise rendition of fun. So. This is the lodge. This is the actual existing guest house and lodge at Grand Vineyard Estates. It's settled in. The grapes are mature. There's about 700 acres of actual grapes that belong to the vineyard, and then another 300, 400 acres that adjoin the property. So literally, you look across about 1,000 acres of vines to the Andes. There's home sites that are already serviced, underground electric, water. The roads are in. These are move-in ready. We'll build a home for you. Come on down. Here's the site plan. You can see how these home sites are just tucked right into the heart of the vineyard. The views of the Andes from every single property. The lodge sits right at the edge of a nice common area. We'll be building condos. We'll be building tiny homes, and those prices are going to be sub $150,000 for a vineyard property. Homes in the estate lots will start at about $300,000 and go up to about $800,000 to $900,000 for some of the larger homes on some of the larger lots. But again, just very, very spectacular location. Every home on the vineyard with views of the Andes, just absolutely spectacular. The lodge, the current guest house. These are some pictures of the pool, the food and beverage portion of the lodge. We'll be adding on to the lodge. We'll be adding some condos. We'll be expanding the kitchen facilities, and then again offering condo product at about $120,000. Again, looking out over the vines into the Andes. Another view of the lodge with the pond and the pool off to the left. Again, a wonderful place to spend time with friends, to gather, to enjoy a parrilla, some aerial shots. You can see the model home on the left, the lodge in the foreground, and then the vineyards running really up to the base of the mountains. Just absolutely spectacular. So again, another view of the home here, which is 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, about 1/2 acre for $300,000. And the landscaping had just been planted. It's all grown in now. Beautiful. We've got some tiny casitas we're putting together. And the concept there is, use it a week or two a year, rent it out the rest of the time. Very, very price and economically positioned at $130,000 with the furniture and taxes. Puts you right around $150,000, and a great floor plan. These tiny home casita, they are eco-friendly, they are smart, and really will capture the essence of the vineyard experience with the architecture, the stone, the native stone, the parrilla. Everyone will have a parrilla as well. So again, utilizing what's there, using what's authentic and natural to the region, all of them fronting the vineyard with the incredible views. And then for folks that want a larger home, planning to spend more time, we'll have 3 floor plans from about 1,300 square feet all the way up to about 2,300 square feet. Plans that folks can choose from, make some changes as long as they're not structural. Anything over 2,400 square feet, we imagine folks would want to hire an architect. We have several architects that we're working with. We have some new plans coming in from a new architect who, as an American fellow, works in Washington, D.C. His wife is Argentinian from Mendoza. They're now living in Mendoza, back in Mendoza. And so again, really, really important piece of information here. It's a U.S. architect and his wife is an Argentinian. They're both architects. He brings with him the understanding of what the American floor plan should be for an American customer. And this is something that our company is very, very familiar with. We understand that Americans like open floor plans and we want to be able to enjoy the company of one another while we cook in the kitchen, and so they're not isolated and off in a separate room. And the Argentinian expertise bringing to the table is, if you plan to rent your home, it's critically important to have a small maid's quarters or staff quarters, because if you're renting to wealthy Argentinians, it's likely they'll bring a nanny or one of their maids with them, and where are they going to sleep? And so the fusion of what's smart and sensible from the United States with what's smart and sensible in Argentina, this is a pretty powerful package. We've done it in other countries, and we're bringing it here to Argentina as well. All right, Rachel, we got another question.
All right, poll number 3. Here we are. What is the population of Mendoza? And this is not just within Mendoza City, but within the suburbs as well. So take your best guess. What is the population of Mendoza? I'll give you 10 more seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we had about 65% of the folks who got this correct. Mike, you can shift to the other slide. And, go forward.
There we go.
There we go. And the answer there is 1.9 million people. So like Mike mentioned, Mendoza really is a spectacular city. It has a European feel to it, which is quite unique when you're looking at Latin American countries. So I would recommend everybody to come down and check it out when they can. But now there's a fun fact for you to share with other folks. 1.9 million people, the population of Mendoza.
Yeah, and it's a sidewalk culture, cafe culture. It's just spectacular. I mean, to walk along the streets, and they're shaded. They've done a beautiful job of planting trees, then many of which are over 100 years old. Rosewood trees that are well over 100 years old. Just shady, beautiful streets and parks and restaurants and cafes and ice cream shops out on the street, and tons of people of all ages just enjoying being outside. It is a neat city. So if you decide that you want to become one of our owners, there are some additional benefits besides having a beautiful home and a vineyard. One of the things that we are doing is we have our own wines that Steve produces called Nusta, and it's spectacular Malbec. It's a single vineyard Malbec. One of the things that comes with your home is several cases of wine every year from our own vineyard. And if you're down there and you feel like getting your hands dirty and helping out to pick the grapes or make wine, you're certainly welcome to do that as well. You don't have to. The wine, you can just sit back and let all that happen, and the wine will come to you. The rental program is established. Steve and his team have been working the lodge guest house for several years, as well as the model home in the last year. The rental program is established. There's already a very, very high traffic through. It's a little over 50% right now. And as we add more units, as more people are coming down to have homes built, the occupancy is actually slated to go up significantly as people come down and want to rent while their home is being built. So the other thing to mention that's this last point on here, critically important, because Argentina has gone through so many economic gyrations over the last century. Everything that we do, everything that you would be asked to do would be done in US dollars, so that you have a fixed price. Now the exchange rate in Argentina fluctuates. Right now it's very, very affordable. I mean, a steak dinner at one of these sidewalk cafes was $6, $7, $8, and sometimes it's $10, $11, $12, and sometimes it's $6, $7, $8 like it was. But your property is priced in dollars. You have a fixed price, which is critically important that that's going to happen. That's not always the case when you're buying property in Argentina. Prices will fluctuate, but we have been doing this long enough. We understand what it takes to get the job done. We can use some of the hedging out there to actually lock in a US dollar price. So very, very important point. And if you own a property somewhere else, you decide you don't want to own with us, please remember that one point is critically important, and it's not very common in the industry. So I would invite you to come down and enjoy the harvest. Come down and see it for yourself, and take a horseback ride in the vineyards, and sample some wonderful wines, and kick back and just really see what it feels like to live in a vineyard for a few days. And if it really gets your heart pumping, and it's something that you want to do, it is a very, very affordable way to own a vineyard home. Everything from the condos at the lodge to the casita concept, the eco-smart casitas, both very, very affordable, right on the vineyard. And then homes. The model home is there. It is for sale. And then vineyard estates starting at about $330,000 and up, depending on the home size that you pick. So we look forward to having you come visit. We encourage you to come visit. It's better there, and the harvest season is absolutely the best time to be in Argentina, to see it in action, to really participate in this very, very exciting venture, and become a part of it. So, Rachel, I think that's it. You may have some comments that you want to add as well. We'll probably get some questions too, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do see some questions starting to come in here, but I do recommend for folks who really are looking for something different to come down and experience Argentina. You don't even have to enjoy drinking wine to experience and really get a good feel of the country. I know that we went on, probably about 10 wine tastings. Mike was there. Michael, you were enjoying it as well, right? And even though you weren't sipping on the wines. So
I did. The food pairings were spectacular. Although I will admit, everyone on the trip was teasing me because I said I was going to have beef for lunch and dinner every day of the trip, and for almost every meal but two I did. So it was fantastic.
That's true. That's very, very true. All right, so why don't we jump into the questions here? I see one in from Jeff from Casper, Wyoming. Are the rental dollars in US dollars or in local currency?
Wow, Jeff, what a great question. We are working really, really hard to engineer a way that that a large percentage of the revenues on the rentals would get captured in US dollars, would stay in US dollars for rental return back to owner investors. So it's a great question. It's a very, very significant question. Obviously, operational costs, all that stuff has to be done in pesos, but we're trying to figure out a way to engineer it so that we can keep as many US dollars as possible. So as we get those details, as we get a rental program in place, we'll certainly send you that information so you can make sure it lines up with what your interests are. But great question, and we're working real hard to make that happen.
Perfect. The next one I see is from Grover, and he asks, what are the ongoing costs with ownership?
That's a good question. We don't actually have that yet, and it's going to vary whether you're in a condo or one of the casitas or in a larger home. In a condo, you've got a lot of shared expenses. You've got the shared roof and insurance and things like that, but you also share it with the other folks who own it. So it's a little bit different than if you own a standalone home. Typical condo fees, Rachel, I think we were penciling in some numbers. What are they, about 200, maybe two and a quarter a
Yep.
month, something like that?
Yep, exactly.
And condo would be slightly different because, again, you've got some maintenance issues in a condo that you wouldn't have in a standalone home that would have to be carried by the common element like the roof. But two and a quarter we think is about where it's at. The one thing I would mention, Grover, and this is something, again, really, really important, whether you buy a property from us or you buy one from our competitors, please check this out. All homeowners fees belong to homeowners. I think a lot of times developers take the homeowner money and they throw it in their bank account, and the homeowners don't have any control over it. They don't have any accounting over it, and really it's just a fee to the developer. We segregate the homeowners association as a legal separate entity. The money that the homeowners pay into the homeowners association goes to the homeowners association. And so if the fees are set at 200 or 225 and 3, 4, 5 years from now there's a huge surplus sitting there, the homeowners can vote to lower the homeowner fees. And so this is a critically important point for folks to remember. One of the things that we as an organization do is we actually really try to set the homeowners fees a little higher than they need to be. And I know I'm probably losing, 17 people just disconnected from the webinar. Not really, but I mean, like nobody wants to hear HOA fees being set higher. But we feel that's the honest way to handle it. I think it's critically important to figure out as best you can what it's really going to cost to run the common area. I mean, there's underground electric, there's streets, there's underground water, there's about a 3-kilometer road. That's at a 1.5 miles, almost 2-mile road from the main road that comes in, right? So all of these things cost money. There will be security, right? And so, I think it's honest and right to try to put that number as close as possible and then bump it up a little bit so that you don't have assessments and there's no surprises later. We do a good job of that as an organization, and I think we probably lose sales once in a while because our condo fees seem too high at the outset. But the bottom line is it costs whatever it costs to maintain a property, and the money belongs to the homeowners association. The homeowners can decide to raise or lower those fees, when the numbers are known. 3-4 years into it, you actually have a real track record. You will know. We've been doing it a long time. We've 18, 19 years now. We have a pretty good handle on what it costs to run things, and I think our numbers are about right. But again, it's a great question to ask, and thanks, Grover, for asking it.
All righty, moving on here. Can you talk a little bit more about the climate?
Yeah, sure. In the U.S. terms, I would have described it as a Denver climate. It's high. It's not quite a mile. It's about 4,000 feet above sea level there at the Vineyard, and it's dry. It's very, very dry. Very little rain. It's desert, as you can see from the natural vegetation. And in the summertime, the temperatures are 90 kind of. Maybe 100, but very, very dry. But 80. In fact, Rachel, that would be a great question to maybe throw into the presentation. Just sort of the average temperatures by month, right?
Absolutely.
In the wintertime, they might get a dusting of snow once a year. They might get a heavy snowfall, a foot of snow once every 4 or 5 years. But 3-4 days after the snow, it could be 60 degrees again. So, and in many ways, it's a lot like Denver, like that. Other people have described it to New Mexico. So, and I've not spent enough time in New Mexico to know, but think Denver, and I think you're pretty close to the climate type.
All righty, perfect. Next question we have here is from Corey, and he asks, how many Casa Los Olivos are being built?
This was the model home, and it is built, and it is for sale. If folks like that home, we will duplicate it and build it again. I think the styling that most people that we've talked to really prefer is more the Napa Valley ranch kind of feel that the lodge is. But there are a lot of folks buying what I would call a more modern feeling property. And in fact, if the Vineyard, what was the Vineyard where we had dinner at? The very modern one.
Casa de Luco.
Yeah, Casa de Luco, very, very modern. And so again, there's a wide range of architectural styles throughout the Uca Valley, and you'll see it all. And we're not going to have real tight architectural covenants and restrictions. We will have size standards. We'll have engineering standards, of course. Things will have to meet a U.S. Or the legitimate Argentinian engineering standards for seismic. It is a seismic zone. Not a lot of earthquakes there, but it's on the Andes, so there are earthquakes. But again, we'll build to a seismic standard that's our Argentinian standard. And the styling of homes again can range, but there will be an architectural review committee that determines whether it's tasteful or not. And that can happen before somebody purchases the property. Of course, they can show us some pictures of some homes that they might like to, emulate, maybe not duplicate, but emulate. Here's the style, here's the size, and it'll run through an architectural review committee to, yay or nay it, or offer some suggestions. So.
Perfect. All right. So next question, and this one, Mike, is probably going to be a to be decided, and we'll keep you updated based on the project. But what are the closing costs, real estate costs, and utility costs?
I think you answered that, Rachel.
I figured. Grover, we'll keep you posted if you have any specific project out of the four here that are on the screen. We can definitely work on those numbers for you.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
Dean.
Real quick, because we've operated the lodge now for I guess this is our 6th year, and the model home for over a year now. We actually have hard, real utility numbers based on empty, occupied. So those numbers, we actually do have hard data. So we can certainly get that to you, as well. And it varies on the size of the homes and stuff like that. But we have data on that we can certainly provide in the very near future.
Perfect. And Dean asks, how many total housing units in the community are planned?
Good question. This is phase 1. There are 84 home sites, plus the condo parcels and the tiny homes. We may do some additional subdividing of some of the larger home sites in that. I would anticipate we'll end up with between 125 and 150 addresses total in this phase 1. There's additional property in the vineyard that we have an option to acquire and develop. There's certainly tons of property around as well that we could expand. But phase 1, somewhere between 125 and 150 addresses. Phase 2, again, when we've maybe sold about half or 2/3 of phase 1, we'll launch into a phase 2 that really could be upwards of 500 addresses over a 15 to 20 year period. There we would actually come at it a little more traditionally, like we have at our Grand Pacifica community, using a village concept and building out from a town center and creating sort of a core nucleus of economic activity that would be supported by 100 addresses in phase 1 and the new addresses in phase 2, the little village. So you start to get that economic imperative, that the economic sustainability that will keep a little coffee shop and an ice cream place and maybe a restaurant or two, a small hotel in business, and it becomes a wonderful place to be, because you have all of those amenities right there at your fingertips. But that's probably 5 to 7 years out before we start on our phase 2 and get that to the point we would have those that village, the initial kernel of a village in place.
All righty, perfect. Next question that I'm seeing here is what happens if the vineyard is sold or if the vineyard goes bankrupt?
That's a good question. I guess in the worst case scenario, the vines would just grow and not produce great wine anymore. But I imagine that because they're in the ground, they're mature, that somebody would come along and buy it. I mean it produces I can't remember. It's either 3.3 or 3.5 million kilograms of grape a year. I mean, so it is an incredibly valuable producing agricultural asset. So I guess it could go bankrupt. If the price of wine fell through the floor and if everybody stopped drinking wine or whatever, all of those things are possibilities. In a worst case scenario, the vines would go away, I guess. I don't think that's very likely at all. Again, you've got people like the Rothschilds. In fact, that lower right picture, Rachel, where it says Vineyard Estates model starting at 329, that is the Rothschilds vineyard in the background. It's a neighbor of ours. So you've got the Rothschilds in there. You've got rock stars coming in to make boutique wines. I'm thinking that if ours went belly up for whatever reason, somebody would come along and buy it. Again, if there's a worldwide wine stoppage, that's sort of a different thing. But it's a valuable, exceptionally valuable producing asset.
All righty, fantastic. And next question that we have here is, will financing be available?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly up to 50%, 50. Client can put in half the money. Financing will be made available through Key Bank in Belize. Full disclosure, I'm one of the founders of the bank. I sit on the board and the management committee. So I just want that to be fully transparent to everyone. It's a separate business, separate entity, but it does lend up to 50% on properties in the region, including what we would have here at the Grand Vineyard Estates. Obviously, people aren't locked into that. Find financing anywhere, but we will have it for folks who want it.
Perfect. Next question is from Jane, and she asks, is the drinking water from wells or a central utility, and is it septic or sewer?
Great question. So the wells are the same agricultural wells that produce the drinking water. It's wonderful water, very potable, and it's, again, the same water that's used to irrigate the vines. Right now on the home sites, because they are about a half acre, more or less, mostly more, but just right in around a half acre, 0.63 in some cases, they would be septic. The water is pumped to the home. The sewer would be septic. As we get into the higher densities, then we would be looking at certainly a sewer system to capture and treat the waste in the higher density areas. The soil is alluvial. It perks very, very well. So for septic systems, it's an ideal soil type for very, very effective and inexpensive septic systems.
All right, perfect. Right, next question I have here is the lodge suites. Do they have an open or closed bedroom?
Rachel?
And I can answer this. Yeah, I can answer this one. It is, at this point, a studio. Think of it like a hotel room, or even better than that, if you've ever stayed at a B&B before. It'll be that sort of style. The rooms will be about 520 to 540 square feet, including balcony space or a porch. But at this point, it is all open. There will be a little kitchenette there, but because you have access to the large living space, also the common kitchen, which we showed on a couple of pictures ago, you'd have plenty of space to feel comfortable. All right, next question we have here is, have you considered solar?
Oh yeah, the Casita Eco Village solar is a big part of that. Every home will have a solar component, passive kind of passive solar component for water heating, with solar panels to actually generate electricity as well. Any home can be equipped. We will have packages for that. I mean, the sun shines kind of like Denver 300 days a year or something. I mean, it's sunny almost all the time. So absolutely, solar will be integrated into much of what we do as a company. Obviously, if you're a homeowner and you build a home, it's your home. We imagine that most folks would want to take advantage of that resource, plentiful free resource as well. But we're not going to mandate it. But internally, when we build stuff, we will fully, as you can see with the casitas and the condos as well, be implementing solar.
All righty, fantastic. This one is a little bit specific, but Gary, we may answer it offline for you. Do you have an expected annual income at 50 to 75% occupancy?
That's a great question. What we can do is we can actually share with you historical numbers from the lodge and from the first home, and we'll be happy to do that. And the numbers are pretty good, but again, it depends on which model you buy. And actually, let me just throw one other thing out, that it's really something that more and more people are doing, and I guess probably because it's easy for more and more people to do it, and that is to become a partner in the booking of your rental property. I mean, we're seeing more and more people put their units on an Airbnb, or even some people even go as much as to set up a little website. They talk it up, they do whatever it takes, and just simply getting 8 to 10, 12, one booking a month significantly impacts the bottom line. And now it's just so easy to do with Airbnb and some of these other platforms. So when we first started 15, 18 years ago, not a whole lot of folks were doing that. Now I would say that maybe between a quarter and a third of the folks are actively engaged. And what that does is, if we can deliver 50, 55% occupancy, and you can deliver another booking a month, now you're at 75% occupancy. The occupancy, the money that flows to you is greater, but you as the acquiring agent also capture that fee that would normally be paid to a travel agent. So it really boosts the numbers significantly, and we encourage it. We provide all the marketing materials. We'll even help you create a landing page. Basically, kind of copy over one of our landing pages with all the information and pictures and links and stuff like that. But all the links are directly tied to you. They're unique for you. So if you're thinking about property as a rental property, we become your partner in promotion, and we'll help you, promote it, beyond what we can do in the general marketplace that we touch. So keep that in mind if this is a rental property that you want to own. And Rachel, if you would follow up with some of the information from Steve, the historical numbers to Gary, that'd be great.
Of course. All right. Next question that I'm seeing here, and this is a great question, Grover. How does this property compare to Gran Pacifica in Nicaragua?
That is a good question. In many ways, it's similar. There's single family home sites. We're going to be building some built product. We're going to build some condos. We're going to build some of these, casita product at what I would call starter price points, right? $120,000, $130,000. But by and large, the vast majority of these 80 plus home sites, people are going to get to come in. They're going to get to design a home or pick one of our models and tweak it and pick colors and really create the home that's a special place for them. And that's pretty cool. It's about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes from the Mendoza airport. Gran Pacifica is about an hour and 20 minutes from the Managua airport. Obviously there's no ocean here, but it's a different scenery. Climate wise, I would say 8 months out of the year, maybe six months out of the year, they're almost an identical climate. Gran Pacifica is hot and dry. We've got cactus and palm trees. Here, 6 months out of the year, from say maybe November to April, it's hot and dry. So I don't know. Grover, it's a great question. I think in many ways it's similar. Obviously, the amenity, the vineyards, the mountains is very different from the Gulf and the ocean. But I don't know. I think I think they feel to me similar in a lot of important ways. And certainly as we get into the phase two with the village, starting to create that kernel of a village that creates that real sense of community over the long term, 15, 20 years, that's when it will start to feel a lot more like Grand Pacifica in the ways that really count, which is community. And again, with 84 home sites, about 120, 150 addresses, there's going to be enough density there that people are going to meet one another at the lodge, at the swimming pool, whatever, whatever, hiking, riding horseback, going fly fishing, going to the vines and having a wonderful dinner. All of these things will foster real community, and the people that attract themselves to Argentina will share, a love of wine probably, or a love of that that mountain, dry, arid experience. And the people at Grand Pacifica share that with the Gulf and the ocean, and that commonality creates a special place. It creates community, and it's really just wonderful to see it happening at Grand Pacifica. And I anticipate it happening here probably even faster than it happened at Grand Pacifica, just because it's ready to go. We don't have to build out all the infrastructure and start from scratch. I mean, it's there. It's ready. We're launching today. So I think it'll accelerate beyond what we did at Grand Pacifica in terms of timelines.
Yeah, absolutely. This is another great question from Corey. If there is a phase two, will the lots in phase one lose their views?
Oh no, actually, the phase two is a little further from the mountains and not in any line of sight. So phase two, I mean, it's hard to imagine how big 700 acres of vineyards is, but I mean, the vineyards they're not quite square, but imagine them as a square. I mean, it's about 3 kilometers by 3 kilometers. So it's a huge piece of property. So phase two is in a different area, and phase one, I mean, I guess you could probably see them from one another, but in no way would they block any views of the vineyard, of the mountains, or anything. And they're going to be they'll be about a half a mile apart, more or less. So, yeah.
Perfect. All right. Now the next question I have here is from Grover as well. There are 5 wine regions in Argentina. What region is this one in? And from what I remember, it's the Luyan de Cuyo. There's my attempt at the name of that, but it's in the Cuyo district, which is about specifically where we are, about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes south of Mendoza.
Wow, Rachel, you get the star tonight. I had no clue. Well done.
Oh, yes, yes. We tasted a lot of wine, and those were the things they kept emphasizing, is where the grapes were being grown. And specifically in the Uco Valley, it's fairly new when it comes to vineyards. But and I say that because it's been growing over the past 12, 15 years, where other areas have been more established in growing grapes for over the past 80, 90, 100 years. But what's really unique about this part of Argentina, specifically related to wine, is that this region continues to produce wines that are rated at 90 points plus. So a lot of winemakers are specifically looking for grapes out of this region because the climate's right, the soil's right, and it's truly producing spectacular tasting wines.
Yep. Speaking of spectacular wines, I mean, I just flip back a slide. Please, if you're on this webinar, come down and join us for this harvest celebration. You will be so glad you did. And Rachel will be your hostess with the mostest, getting you to some of these winery tours and talking about some of those details of the wines. And Steve will be with us, and his son's an incredible sommelier, and Lucas will be there. So there really will be some of the best around
Yes.
during this harvest celebration to, answer every question you have about wine. And Rachel and I will be there to talk about real estate or anything else you would like to talk about. But I would encourage you to please put this on your schedule. My advice when you're thinking about traveling somewhere is to buy the plane tickets. So when we're done here tonight, log on to Kayak or whoever you buy your plane tickets from. Remember to look at Copa through Panama and buy your plane tickets. And then the chances of you coming down are pretty high. You can figure the rest out later. But once you buy those plane tickets, it sort of sets you in motion to join us for the harvest celebration. So I hope some of you will decide to do that tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And I have quite a few more questions here, Mike, but I'm going to ask just a couple more that I think a few other people may be thinking as well. This one is from Eric, and he asks, when is the projected completion date for these properties?
I'm not 100% sure I understand what that means. If somebody wants a tiny home, one of the casitas, it takes about 6-7 months to build. The condos, we can't build them, one at a time, but we'll start towards the end of their winter, which would be, kind of August-ish, as they get into their spring. And the condos would take about 12 months. Single family homes take about a year, maybe 14 months to build. So, each of the products takes a little bit long, a little bit different in length to build. I hope that answered the question. If not, shoot us an email, Eric. We'll answer the question more specifically, but I'm not sure I understood exactly what it was.
Yeah, I think that was about it, Mike, is just the general timeline. And also, I mean, starting, obviously, we're putting together the final pieces of some of the information now, so we're able to get that to folks as soon as possible. And then if you just adopt Mike's timeframes there, then you'll have a timeline towards completion of that each specific area. Now, the next question I see is from Dusty. And Dusty, I see you're here in San Pedro. Make sure you come by and visit us in the Blue Casita here. But Dusty is asking, can we buy a lot and not build on it right now?
Hey, Dusty, I'm not sure why you didn't join us on the top of the bank building for cocktails the other night. But anyway, I enjoyed seeing you and Carolyn for a moment in the street. Anyway, so the answer to your question is there will be parts of phase one that will have a no build requirement and parts that will have a build requirement. And I think this is also important to mention that, that if you want to build within, start building within, say, 6 months, and I think we've talked about that, we will have a rebate program on the price of the lot that we will pay to your builder, right? So you start building a home, when the roof is on, like, we'll make the next payment to your builder as sort of a rebate and incentive to get started building a home. But we will have some areas of the phase one that will be just the home sites. And yes, absolutely, you can own one of them with no obligation to build on them. So we haven't exactly done the zoning of which areas are which at this point, but we'll be getting to that over the next, say, 30 days. And once we do, we'll get that information over to you guys.
All right. And then one question that I see is, and this is another great question, Eric, is who are the current people that this area attracts? Locals, South Americans, or other countries? Question mark.
That is a good question. So when we were down there, we were too big of a group to actually stay in the clubhouse. So we stayed at another winery, 15 minutes away. And we ran into a bunch of Brazilians who were coming down. And in fact, I think was it Gol Airlines? I forget. One of the Brazilian airlines has a direct flight from Sao Paulo to Mendoza, and Rio also has a direct flight now. So it's getting a lot of Brazilians. So I think that's an important marketplace. In fact, we just today, Rachel and I were on the phone with a person in Brazil who's going to be doing translation of our web page, landing pages, some of our marketing materials into Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, to begin to tap into that market with those direct flights. There's a real marketplace there. But certainly we ran into other North Americans at many of the wineries we were at. There were North Americans there. I don't know if they were Canadian or U.S. They were speaking English. So it's a lot of North Americans. It's a lot of Brazilians, and the local marketplace, meaning Argentinians as well. It's an easy flight from Buenos Aires to Mendoza, so there's a lot of people that come out for the weekend kind of tourism business. I didn't get the sense that they were buying homes, although going back to one of Grover's questions earlier was, compared to Grand Pacifica, when we started Grand Pacifica, we had zero thought that we would end up with, a whole lot of Nicaraguan ownership. But about 23–24% of our buyers and property owners now are Nicaraguan. I think that this is sort of a hidden marketplace for us as a company, because again, we come in, we do it right. We make sure that that there's an outlet on every wall, and that all the bathrooms are plumbed for hot water. And these sound like silly things coming from North America, but it's just not the standard. It's just not the norm. And so a lot of times, properties and homes and condos are built to a different standard, and it's not a North American standard. But for the wealthy Latin Americans, the wealthy Nicaraguans, the wealthy Argentinians, the wealthy Brazilians, many of them lived in the States. So the guy that we met at this other resort, he lived in Washington, D.C. He went to George Washington University for a year to pick up an advanced degree. He's lived in very nice homes, and he was very interested in a property because he knew it would meet his expectations that came from North America. So I actually think that we'll probably see a lot of domestic buyers, but we're going to have to earn it. We're going to have to earn it over time. I mean, for the first 5 years at Grand Pacifica, I don't think we had a whole lot of Nicaraguan involvement, but as people said, wow, this place is really nice, and it's I lived in Houston for a number of years or wherever, and this is just like it, and it's planned and it's thought out, and everything works. And I think those are the kinds of things that kind of create a local buzz. So it wouldn't surprise me if 5, 8, 10 years from now we're looking at the same kind of 20–25% of our property owners, they might be RGs. I think the Brazilians will be a great market, which is why we've already hired somebody to do this translation of the sales, marketing, and web materials for us into Portuguese. So I think that'll be a great market for us as well.
All right, and then the last question that will be a quick answer is, are you able to visit or tour the Grand Vineyard Estates outside of the time frame there on the screen? And the answer to that is yes. Eric, I know you have a pretty tight schedule, so when you're able to travel, so I'll send you a couple of dates for the rest of 2019. If they don't work, then you're still able to visit whenever you want. The properties that Mike showed, the guest house and both Casa Los Olivos, are always available for rentals, so you can spend the night out there as well and get a good feel of the property. So with that, we're a little over the hour here, but I do see there are quite a few other questions that we didn't get to. We'll reach out to you to get those questions answered. And in the meantime, I thank everybody for joining us. We hope you have the chance to visit Mendoza, to visit the Grand Vineyard Estates. It truly is a remarkable property that I think you'll fall in love with once you get out there. So thank you, everyone. And Mike, thank you as well for taking the time to share with everybody about Argentina and what you've discovered.
Absolutely. Very excited. And I look forward to seeing many of you here in April, and we'll have a great time in Argentina together.
Fantastic. Good night, everybody. Thank you.